Hello, everyone, and welcome to Exploring Cinema. I'm Nate.
And I'm Dylan.
And I am Adam.
Today, we are talking about Oldboy, the 2003 revenge mystery thriller from Korean director Park Chan-wook, which it's the 20th anniversary of that movie, and it just got a restoration and finally was released in theaters in the U.S. This has been a movie that's a huge cult favorite within the sort of cinephile community, but has been notoriously hard to find for American audiences. I think there have been some moments where it sort of popped onto a streaming service for a little while and then disappeared. You can't rent it anywhere. It's been a really hard movie to find. So I was very excited when I saw a couple months ago that this was getting a re-release in theaters on August 16th. So all three of us went and saw this one together, which is not usually what happens when we go see movies in a theater, but this felt like such a special occasion where we just kind of had to do it. And Adam, I think I've kind of skipped this the last couple times because they've been more well-known movies, but would you like to tell people what Oldboy is about?
Yes. Oldboy, 2003. After being kidnapped and imprisoned for 15 years, Ore-soo is released only to find that he must find his captor in 5 days.
Yeah, and almost like a game show.
Also, a little context. I had seen this movie once years ago. Both of you went in completely blind, but this is the second time I saw it, and couldn't resist going to see it on the big screen when we saw that it was going to be re-released. So, do you got some facts about it, Nate?
I do. I was just going to say too that this felt like such a perfect movie for exploring cinema to do. I mean, we probably would have tried to do this at some point anyway, but kind of when we saw that, it's just going to be in the theater, perfect timing. So yeah, Park Chan-wook, this was his technically fifth movie.
Okay.
I say technically because he has tried very hard to erase all existence of the first two movies that he made.
Interesting.
They have very poor scores on Letterboxd. They came out in like the early and mid 90s, and then there was a bit of a gap before he released Joint Security Area, which is kind of about a accidental or maybe not accidental shot fired at the border of North and South Korea.
Okay.
And then after that, he released Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, which was the first in his Vengeance trilogy, and then Oldboy, and then Lady Vengeance. So I'm not sure if I'm interested ever in checking out one of these two movies that he doesn't want anybody to see, but I did find that a little amusing, particularly for such a accomplished director at this point. Like,
what has he done
two
since?
terrible movies and then kind of a gap, and then he sort of figured it out, or not even sort of, like definitely figured it out.
That is interesting. What has he done more recently since the?
Well, he last year he released Decision to Leave.
Which I love.
Oh, yes.
Which Adam and I reviewed on our other channel, Speak, Film, and Enter, which we have for newer movies. And we both loved it. I think it made both of our top 10s of 2022.
I think so.
Kind of almost his version of like Vertigo, I would say.
It's very strange. It's very good.
Really, really good movie. He also did The Handmaiden, which is one of my favorite movies ever and is just sitting on Prime for anybody who wants to watch that. So very easily accessible. But back to Oldboy. So yeah, his fifth movie had a $3 million budget, made $15.4 million. And as I mentioned before, the second movie in the Vengeance trilogy, which, if you're not familiar, is literally just three movies that tackle similar themes about revenge. They have none of the same characters, no connected storylines. It's not a cinematic universe or any of that nonsense. So you can watch them in any order that you like or don't like. If you want to skip one of them and it doesn't sound interesting, you can watch the third one all by itself if you want to. It doesn't matter. And again, those are called Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance and Lady Vengeance. Oldboy came out right in the middle. And then reception and accolades. It's a very highly regarded movie. 82% on Rotten Tomatoes is kind of the lowest spot that you'll see for it. 8.4 on IMDb and the number 73 movie on their top 250, right between Dr. Strangelove and Coco, which really surprised me how high Coco is on IMDb.
Boy, watching those in order would be a trip.
Oh my God.
That's a very strange
And then
trio.
4.4 out of 5 on Letterboxd, which is insanely high. And that's number 52 of all time on their top 250, sandwiched between Do the Right Thing and Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters, which feels a little more along the lines of the types of movie. If you like one of these movies, you'll probably be into the other. Coco is really just the outlier here.
Yeah.
But, good for Coco. I like that movie. So that's what I had for At a Glance. And then just wanted to remind people to like the video. If you like it, subscribe to the channel to make sure you get all of our movie content, particularly the longer discussions that we like to have as we're kind of using this channel to dive into different types of movies that we've never seen before. So with that said, it is time for opening statements. And who would like to go first? Dylan, I think I asked you to go first last time. So
I'm not doing it.
I can go.
Can't make me.
We can't force him to do it. Not again. An unsettling tale of love, hatred, and rage.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
You're not wrong.
I didn't want to give away too much before we start talking about it. So, yeah, it's just a lot of that.
Yeah, for sure. For me, I guess mine is I felt like I had to wash this movie off of myself after I got home. This is a very gross and disturbing movie a lot of the time. I mean, lots of action. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's not just the twist at the end. It's also like the action itself. There's some pretty brutal. I mean, a dude gets one of his teeth, multiple teeth, like hammered out. I mean, like
guy cuts his own tongue out.
Yeah.
There's also just content-wise, just some disturbing, gross stuff. So I left the theater, got home, and felt like I needed, if not a literal shower, then a figurative one.
Yeah, and let the people know what your palate cleanser movie was when you got home.
Yeah, I got home and just immediately fired up Spielberg's West Side Story. I needed the escape of song and dance.
Yeah. Make me feel free and alive and safe.
Yeah, I'd say even a movie that even a musical that ends in tragedy still felt like it soothed the soul.
Yeah, that tragedy feels almost a little trivial after going through what our main character in Oldboy went through.
Yeah, that's also true.
Nice. As the only one who had seen it before, I had it ranked pretty high. I mean, I think I saw it in my 20s, and definitely the shock at the end stuck with me, and also some of the visual stuff, the hallway fight scene. So my opening statement is, on second viewing, it's a little more shock value than quality, but I was still glad to see a Park Chan-wook on the big screen, particularly this movie. The only other one I've seen on the big screen would have been the one he released last year, and I saw that after you guys. We didn't get to also go see that together. So, seeing Park Chan-wook, with you guys, that was a good time. And visually, I was still very much enthralled. It just felt like as he's kind of unfurling the mystery, he just keeps finding really interesting ways to show what's going on. Like every little, whether it's a montage or a cool mirror shot or like some crazy action sequence, or just he's always finding a way of like, how can I make this shot even a little more interesting? So I had a good time in that sense, but definitely it felt like the end with the big twist, it just felt like it didn't really hit as strongly the second time, and like to your point, Nate, felt a little more just like just kind of, I wish they'd kind of hurry up now, I guess, instead of lingering on this. So that was the impression I got, but still glad that we went and saw it. Went down a little bit in my rankings, but so that would be my opening statement.
Yeah, and then I guess I had one other statement, because I feel fine just kind of right off the bat saying that I did not really care for this. I mean, if I say I have to, I can't think of too many movies where I would also say I had to wash this off, but I think it's pretty darn good. Maybe like Seven.
Yeah.
Would be one that is kind of as disturbing as this, but I actually like. So the other statement I had was that this is a mystery that gets less intriguing the more it reveals itself.
Interesting.
I felt like as we went along, it just kind of the whole deal of you don't know who took him. He's stuck in this place for 15 years. Like that's all fascinating. And then they just let him go one day in a sequence that's real, like just kind of visually really interesting. And then he's just kind of got to play this game that they've created for him. And like that gets a little interesting. And then it reaches a point about halfway through where just every new thing that we learn or kind of way that the story unfolds, I just kind of felt like, oh, really? Is that all this is? Like there's a lot of like the whole thing with, I don't know, hypnosis just feels like such a convoluted or a tool to just kind of make your characters do whatever you want them to do, whether it doesn't make sense or not. And it's such like kind of an abstract practice where it's like basically injecting magic into the movie.
Yeah, I had completely forgot about. Well, I had remembered that hypnosis just played a small role, but I didn't remember that it was like they hypnotized both of them, and that was like a huge part of like why they pulled it off. I remember that it was like, yeah, we have this melody that we played for you constantly when your activities, so then we knew that when you were free and it was the ringtone, you would react to that. Like I remembered that level of kind of conditioning. I didn't remember the direct, like
yeah,
magical element.
Just the level to which this revenge plot was orchestrated felt just more and more over the top and unbelievable to me. And then when we finally get the reveal of like all of it, that too just felt like, are we really going this direction? Like, I guess, because we can get into this a little bit later under questions for you, Dylan, where I kind of wanted to compare it a little bit to the other movies in the Vengeance trilogy.
Yeah.
But this just felt so much to me like it had less to say about the nature of revenge than the other two movies did. But I'll get into that kind of a little bit later, I guess, when we have some questions. But I just kind of wanted to at the top of the show kind of say that I didn't like it, because that's just gonna be
that's
inform the rest of the episode. Yeah.
That's okay.
Exactly,
yeah.
yes.
Not every not every exploring cinema is going to be one that we all love. And it's interesting because we recently on our other podcast, Speak Film and Enter, we did our top 5 of the year so far. And when we were done, we were like, oh, we probably could have guessed what each other's top movie was. Yeah. And I did kind of have an inkling, and I told Adam on our way to the theater, I'm like, I don't know if Nate's going to like this very much, because the more and more I thought about the ending, and
specifically,
kind of how,
he was like, yeah, I think the ending's going to be the part that he just goes, all right, that's not my thing. Like, like, I can see this, I can see that, and then just go, now you've lost me.
It's a little much. It's definitely like kind of icky. So
yeah, it reminds me a lot of
kind of icky. It's very icky.
A lot of Denis Villeneuve's movie Incendie, which I'm a huge fan of his as well, and that's a very highly regarded movie of his that I also did not like for very similar reasons, which I don't want to entirely spoil if you haven't seen that movie yet. But I think we can dive into defining moments, which, these are always going to be influenced by how you felt about the movie. So, Adam, what were your defining moments from Oldboy?
So my defining moments, I have 4. I have 5. The imprisonment, the initial imprisonment, and just the absolute chaos of like, all right, why is this happening? What's going on? How long has he been here? The whole process of him losing his sanity completely,
and like the rules, and kind of just seeing how the captivity works. Yeah,
like he's clearly getting fed, and like it's going well, but like well enough to like he's alive.
Yeah, he can watch TV all day.
Yeah, and he's like tried to take his own life. He's tried to do this. He's tried to do that, and they just like knock him out and do do what they're supposed to. So that whole bit, because that takes like 10, 15, 20 minutes, I want to say, to like do most of that scene.
Yeah,
because it's like pretty right away that happens, because after he gets out of jail, his buddy bails him out of jail, which is in like the first like maybe 5 or 10 minutes.
I mean, the credits are like rolling.
He's taken like right away. So then after that, I had the sushi bar, because that's an important, like that will stick in your mind. You're like, all right, there's this new character we've been introduced to. Like, why is she all of a sudden important? And then he passes out seemingly for no real good reason.
Bro, after eating a live octopus.
Yes.
I haven't forgotten that. I was like,
he's gonna skate right over that part.
Oh my god! I want to talk about a defining moment.
That was on my list. So like, let's talk about the octopus.
Well, and that comes from straight out of him getting out of imprisonment. He just is like, doesn't know how to, and he just like straight face just murders this thing. Like I have to take something's life.
Yeah,
I need
something
to know
that's alive.
Yeah,
and just man,
I need control over my own function now.
Which I'm pretty sure the actor like actually did.
I have a tidbit about it later. So
okay, good.
We'll leave it,
okay.
But yeah. So like that whole scene. Then I had the sex that happens.
Okay,
I think that's that.
I don't know why the way you phrased that just now just was very amusing to me.
The sex that happens in the most clinical of ways, like
yes, very like I don't know, like a cop, right? Like taking notes.
Yeah, see, so you had the sex, right? All right, like so just how like the lead up to that and all the tension that's kind of built into that, and then when it actually happens, and how like painful in more ways than one that it is. And then the last one, or not the last one, the fight, I think is the original hallway? Like the hallway fight.
For sure.
That's what absolutely killer.
For me, that was worth the price of admission. Just
absolutely,
seeing it on the big screen. That's the one thing I totally wanted to see, and it did not let me down.
Did not let me down either. And then like the penthouse scene, the final scene, which I don't know how much we want to talk about that, but like both that and the hallway fight scene are very, very well done. And they both leave you feeling a certain type of way.
Hell yeah, I know. Yeah, the hallway fight scene just is like it, just righteous vengeance, and you're just like, yes, he made it. I hate those like get your revenge, dude. Yeah, that's
also kind of funny.
Yeah,
I know,
absolutely. It's like there are many moments where like everyone's exhausted, and then all just kind of stop and catch their breath, and then there'll just be like one red shirt that just like is gonna charge in and end this, and then he gets like a hammer to the nose.
When he gets stabbed in the back, and he's just down, and they're all standing around. They're like, "All right, is he like about to die? Like, hey man, you okay?" And then he grabs a hammer and just starts hammering toes.
Yeah,
just anyone who's around him, just bam, bam, like, oh my god.
Well, in the opening to that scene is he like stops that guy from doing it, like covers his mouth or whatever, and then like you see the hammer behind him. If I can get my shot, and he's just like, and then it draws a circle and then goes down to his skull, and you're like,
yeah,
oh, okay. And then you just hear a thud, like you just hear like a skull breaking, and then like it starts.
Isn't it funny how that one tiny moment of almost like Wes Anderson-ish, like stuff, like that's such a Wes Anderson thing to do, and it just dropped in the middle of Oldboy, like out of nowhere.
It is weird because it kind of implies like a tone but we never get that tone again.
No, it's just like, hey guys, guess what? It's about to happen. Like,
right.
Nice. Yeah, my defining moments were the same. I have his release from the suitcase or just from the prison on the roof. Just how that looks visually. You see he's on the roof, beautiful like sunset, guy's about to jump off. Like that was just a very, very interesting way to release him from that. It very disorienting. You're like, okay, what's going on here? Like, I really liked that. The hallway fight and then the climactic reveal, because, even though, I talked about how it didn't quite hit as much the second time, just that penthouse and the way how the villain is just like maniacally laughing, and his kind of like henchman with the white hair who like we don't get to see how like good he is, but then he's just throwing our hero around like he's nothing. Also, clearly that guy had watched RoboCop, because man, there was some glass getting smashed.
For sure.
He was throwing him into every glass surface in that penthouse.
It's like, I'm breaking all your things.
I love
sorry
fights that happen in rich people homes, because they never even flinch when their stuff gets broken.
Right? Or when their henchmen
I can afford another
or
one.
Like
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, like he's got the cool like green the pool with the green lights that's just like part of the floor, and then dudes are just bloody bodies are just laying in the water, and he just doesn't mind. He's just too busy getting dressed and looking fancy.
Yeah,
soaking in his sweet vengeance.
If you can afford to lose the square footage for a needless water feature in your floor that you can't like step in, then I think you're doing pretty well for yourself. Like,
God, I would accidentally step in that thing and drop shit in that thing.
Oh my God, it'd be so dirty.
Yeah, that's a man who doesn't have pets.
Yeah, and doesn't give a shit.
Nate, what were your defining moments?
So I also had the octopus scene, and then I did want to bring up one good one, because I didn't dislike everything about this movie. The entire dumpling sequence I thought was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's almost more frustrating because it just kind of like this movie for me had those moments where I was just like, damn, he's like, because he ate these like all the time. He's going to remember what they taste like. So that's how he's going to go around and kind of get his first lead or clue as to like, how can I find these people? I thought that was brilliant. I've never seen anybody do something like that in a movie before. And I really loved that. And then, just the whole climactic sequence is just so disgusting in like every way imaginable. And really, I mean, that was what left me where I was like kind of teetering on the edge when we got there. And then I was just like, oh, okay, I'm out.
Yeah, I think if it had stuck the landing in your mind, I feel like because I felt like I also felt like for the first like half of the movie it was like all pretty much great because it's like the mystery and all this visual stuff and he's becoming a badass and you get a really interesting mix of like brutal like fist fighting but also kind of like amateur sleuthing, and also kind of a like there's a mastermind at play who gets to come in and kind of mess with you whenever he wants. There was a lot of cool things going on, but then it just goes hard for the shock value right at the end.
And we reach a point at the end too where it feels like the villain just might as well be twirling his non-existent mustache. Like there's a lot of that level at the end of it. We're just like, oh, you did this, but secretly I knew you would. Like, I don't know. There's just a level of control that character had that just made it less interesting for me.
Oh, see, I disagree because like the level of control, he had 15 years to plan out meticulously what the fuck he was going to do to this guy for a slight from, like I 100% buy his motivation. I 100% buy like all of that stuff that goes on that like it leaves you feeling terrible. Don't get me wrong. But I think it was done super well, and I think it's easy to follow that thread. So, like Dylan, you're saying it feels more shock value towards the end, like the second time through. Like, I definitely felt it was shock value, but I definitely felt that it all made sense, and like I thought it worked.
So you bought, you thought that was a believable villain,
absolutely,
and performance. I think he did. The second time, he definitely tries to show, he's a rich boy with some real unresolved issues, and unlimited money, and I liked how, because I obviously remembered the ending, so I remembered that he was very, well dressed and kind of maniacally laughing. But I forgot about the moments leading up to that where he exposes himself as actually being like unwell, like when he just can't handle the other guy talking about how his sister used to be a slut and he just kills him out of blind rage right there. Just other times where he does show vulnerability, and kind of like I'm losing my marbles here. I'm not just
and
like
he spent so much time planning all this that like if it's starting to go wrong, which like he's starting to figure it out like off of his own accord because he's got to track down his friend who's giving him all this information. Like things are starting to unravel and he's panicking that like he's about to lose this whole thing he's basically spent the last 15 years making sure happens the way he wants to happen. Yeah.
Interesting. Should we
jump that leads perfectly into questions because my first one was what was that guy's job? Like he is absolutely loaded. Do we know what he did for a living? Did I miss that?
No, they just said when he was talking to his old school friend about the sister that died, he just says like, they had really rich parents. Like it is mentioned that they just come from money.
Gotcha.
But it's not.
I don't know if he had a job or not.
Well, there's that scene also where he's like walking into his building. He clearly has an assistant who's like telling him about stocks, and they're like, oh, and of course there's a 25% stake that the family holds, but we'll deal with that. Like, so he's clearly like a CEO hedge fund type dude.
And then one other just sort of silly one, and then kind of wanted something else for Dylan that I have. But how many bites do you think either of you could take of that octopus before vomiting?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I wouldn't have started at the head like he did.
You just kind of dip a toe in almost literally.
I'd go a tentacle at a time, I think. I don't think I could
but it's moving the whole time. Don't you?
Oh my God.
As quickly as possible?
Dude, an eye is so smart. I would feel terrible.
No, if I had to eat that thing, I would do what he did because I would want it to be dead as soon as possible.
Quick and painless.
I'm not going the fish sticks route that Dylan's going to do, where I'm just sort of nibbling away at
I just don't think I could get. I don't know if I could swallow. His first bite is so much octopus. I just don't think I could swallow that. So I feel
for
like
sure.
I'd
I
get a
mean,
few bites, but then
I think I'd vomit pretty quickly.
Yeah. How about you, Adam?
I mean, it wouldn't be a short amount. Like it would be pretty quick. I feel like I don't like that. It's probably more crunchy than you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just gonna like squelch in your mouth, and that getting used to the mouthfeel of it would just be like,
once you feel it move while it's in your
yeah. That's what I think. I think I could close my eyes and tell myself that it's just chicken and just like eat away. But when it's like wrapping its tentacles around my hand while I'm eating it,
or like
trying
to
fight
nose,
back, going up my nose, trying to fight back, that would just
lose it there. Like I don't even like yogurt with like chunks of fruit in it. So,
I know.
That type of texture would just ruin it. And then it's fighting you and like holding your hand, and you're like, well,
so
like,
bad.
It's
That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. So then the other question I had for Dylan, because you've seen one of these other ones, is how do you think this compares to Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, and why do you think this is the more popular or famous of the three movies?
I think comparing to Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, I mean, it's kind of in the name, but I felt like Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance had more sympathy for its characters. It felt like they were really just kind of normal people, made some bad decisions, got caught up in those bad decisions, and then things went bad. But it's like, it all felt like the movie cared about them, or at least like we were meant to shown, like, you know, not everyone's perfect. But with this, it felt more like, okay, there is like a clear villain, and like it felt like it didn't have as much sympathy for the actual characters. It just was building to this crazy twist, and he just kind of like wanted to put somebody through this. He wanted somebody to have to endure this, and so it's like, let's create a person who we can root for, but then ultimately, you know, they like, you know, have a very unfortunate ending to the movie.
You can and you can't. Like
yeah, and I just think the shock value probably. I just think
I think that
the one line elevator pitch of what makes this movie shocking, I think is why it has stuck
and
around.
It's got more like memorable action set pieces in it as well.
Yeah.
I also just think the fact that it's like a clearly definable like male lead vengeance story, it works in its favor. I strongly prefer Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. That felt almost like something the Coen brothers could have made.
Yeah, that one felt very, it just kind of felt like smaller in scope, kind of small town, like
more like normal people getting caught up in circumstance, whereas this is kind of just like an unhinged rich kid like
torments,
concocting some crazy revenge fantasy into reality. And I don't know, I mean, I can understand why it's more popular, but I think the other two are far superior movies.
Yeah, in Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, there's that moment late in the movie. It's extremely clever where he knows someone's going to come after him, and so he wires the metal door, to electrocute him as soon as he touches the handle. Very clever, very like small time. Like, ooh, I could have thought of that. It felt like this movie shifted into more like straight up heroic, like. Our main character isn't just kind of a clever small time criminal who's caught up in some junk. He's like a tormented man who then worked himself up to a heroic status. It just all felt so big, you know?
Yeah.
Yes and no. Cause I think to your point that you're saying like the villain's like a rich kid. I think they're both rich kids because they both went to the same school. Where we see in the beginning, like the opening scene, that our main character is like wearing a suit and like clearly like makes a bunch of money despite being like a fucking like whack job. He's clearly like wealthy. Or
at least doing okay. He's not.
Yeah. So I think like, and when he's imprisoned, like it becomes a him versus his own mind, and like he starts like punching the wall and building stuff up because he's just some weird rich dude who becomes this like. Because of the vengeance that he feels, and like because of the hatred and the rage, he builds himself into this like larger than life, maybe, or not really, but like he gives himself abilities or like the will to live, the will to push himself past what he is capable of.
Yeah, basically get like a Rocky montage for him.
Yeah,
training
he's
himself
just
up
got
for his
some
revenge.
he's just got some massive calluses and like bone, like bruises, like sticking out that like, you know, make him probably invulnerable to a certain degree of pain with his hands.
Yeah, I guess very last way I would put it is it felt like, sympathy for Mr. Vengeance is Coen Brothers-esque, and it's a lot of cause and effect and reaction and whereas this felt like a gauntlet was set up that our character had to go through. And that it just is different.
He could totally be a solid participant in the Squid Games, I think.
Yeah, it is. Honestly, like this and Squid Games.
It's an octopi game, though.
Some similar themes for sure. Oh, God, the octopi games.
Lord.
You start by eating a full one, and then you go.
Yeah.
Got to keep your stomach the whole time.
Yeah, you eat a full octopus, and then you run like a half marathon.
Question for the group. First one. If you were in prison for 15 years, but you could choose the food, what would you eat every day for 15 years? He got dumplings.
Oh my God.
It has to be one thing.
They're still incarcerating you. They're still bad guys, but they will let you choose the food.
Oh my! So like basically, you have to eat the same thing like for dinner every night, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, man, that's a good question.
Oh my God, I'm trying to just like, in a way, it almost has to be something simple because those are the things that you can just kind of eat over and over again.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, I feel like it's tempting to just say you'd have like some type of really fancy steak or something, but like, do you want like every day?
Yeah.
It's when in reality, the thing that would be easiest to just kind of do every day would just be like a sandwich you really like.
Yeah, like a turkey sandwich, turkey bacon
something
club
simple.
Like that's 100%. Yeah, mine would be a BLT or a turkey club sandwich, and if they give me the option, I'd get chicken wild rice soup with it.
I was gonna say, are you gonna eat a sandwich without dunking it into soup?
I could sustain that for years.
I'd like herbs and herbs, please. Thanks. Beer cheese soup. I'd probably say like a turkey bacon club or like chili ramen.
Nice. Okay.
Add some ramen's different in most places everywhere you go. So like add some eggs or something to a little protein. Just
probably like some kind of burrito bowl.
Oh,
that's a good choice too.
Yeah,
I could really mess with that, but
or maybe just chicken tendies.
That's true. That's not far off from the dumplings.
Yeah, it really isn't. No, it really isn't. As long as they give me dipping sauces. And then the last question for the group, I feel like the question that this movie kind of puts way in your face at the end is, would you have told her? Would you tell her if you were in that situation?
I think yes, but it would have been like in a letter and I never see her again.
Well, that's the thing. If you tell her, you can't see her ever.
Yeah. It's just
because that's just she's done.
Yeah. Or do you live in the?
Maybe you just disappear. Maybe you don't tell her and you still just disappear. Like I think that's the best ending. Is just
run away from the
pretend you're dead. Just pretend you're dead.
I agree with Adam. Just move.
Yeah, just
emigrate somewhere.
Yep, exactly. Emigration is the answer to
just fuck those problems there in the old country. I'm gonna go somewhere else.
Yeah.
All right.
Move to like Vancouver or something.
Yeah. I've got two questions. The first one is just why. Just why? Why make it? Why write it? Why anything?
I think I feel like on some level he knew what he was doing. I think it was adapted from a manga, and so the idea was not his, but he it was planted in his head, and he's like, okay. And he already did the first Vengeance movie. He's thinking, I want to do a Vengeance trilogy. This is a really crazy out there Vengeance story that has like a shocking twist. If I make that into a movie, it fits with my themes, and also I bet it might have staying power. And like, I've never seen this in a movie before. I just feel like sometimes it's one of those ideas where the director just thinks, I have never seen that in a movie before.
Yeah, I can't let it go.
If I do it and I pull it off, like, bam. And so,
yeah, I mean, it's hard to say he made, like, I don't like this movie, but he clearly didn't make a poor career decision or anything.
No.
This movie's like lived on for 20 years now and is, like we said, one of the most highly regarded movies of all time, even if it is kind of still in like Mulholland Drive, like sort of weirdly in that like legendary cult status.
Yeah.
Or it's kind of occupies both worlds a little bit. But the why, especially for me after making Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, which in my opinion is like, I just found so successful narratively. to kind of go for another revenge movie right away when he was never planning on making 3 of them.
Oh, okay. Interesting. It just kind of
somebody asked him, like, why are you making another revenge movie? And he was like, sort of quipped that, like, oh, it's going to be a trilogy, actually, with no intention of making another one. And then he was just kind of like, I guess I said that, so I have to make another one
now. How is Lady Vengeance, by the way? I mean, I haven't seen it.
The ending is stunning.
Okay. Interesting.
I gave both of the other 2 4 out of 5 stars.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. I got to see that. I know it's hard to find, but I got to end up.
Highly recommend. That one is also kind of like a long drawn, like a long con in the long game, but from like a clear victim's perspective.
Okay.
Whereas like this guy really isn't at all. And it's much more like ground level, sort of long con, much more like female positive as well, where like I like this movie does not do the female characters justice in any way whatsoever.
Yeah,
I feel like both of the other 2 really do.
Yeah, even like leading into, even before we get to the big twist at the end, just anytime.
Well, it's like almost worse in a way early when you don't know.
Yeah, there were some interesting decisions made with the Mito character.
Yeah,
just, right away from the beginning. What was the other question, Adam?
My other question is kind of along the same lines. Do you think this movie works? And I guess works is a loose definition. Do you think this movie works if the genders are reversed?
Oh,
if it's like a mom,
that would be a wild.
That would be a wild.
I mean, that's basically, well, like that's basically Oedipus.
Well, yeah,
that's
But like Oedipus seeks out his mother. His mother isn't like seeking out. You know what I mean? Like
he doesn't know it's her though.
But but similar. Obviously,
theoretically, it could. I think it could be
like a mother trying to like say it's like she's fighting to find her family or something, and you know,
wrongly imprisoned. Yeah, they set her up.
Do you think she has the will? Do you think she has the ability to endure that, like mentally, and then get out and like build up and start like just fucking slinging people? And you know what I mean? Like,
isn't that like what Kill Bill is?
Yes and no. I mean, that's a marriage kind of, but
yeah.
I mean, it's similar-ish though. Like, it's a big bloody revenge tale.
Yeah. She's got better weapons, I'll say, in Kill Bill, so that makes it slightly easier. I mean, if he had a katana, like that fight scene in the hallway is over a lot faster.
She's fighting far more trained people, though.
That's true. That's very true.
I guess I feel like, in a way, if they tried to do the reverse, I would find it unbelievable that the mother wouldn't recognize her own son, even if he was grown. I guess I just feel like, and
even if she was like a drunk and shit. And
even that. I mean, because even with this movie, that's a little bit of a stretch that you have to believe because we don't see how old Mito is when he's at the beginning, when he's going to get her the wings. So I mean, obviously she could have been like a toddler. So it's like, okay, but I don't know. That's like the one part where it's like, the bond, the mother-child bond is so strong. Like, even if you hadn't seen your son for 15 years, I just feel like, I don't know. That would be maybe even just more of a stretch for me. I guess I thought of a question while you were saying your questions. It kind of led me to it, which I guess is when we find out why this is all happening to him. Why? I thought it was an interesting choice that his great sin was something that he didn't even really remember and didn't even.
It's
that I actually really liked.
It's fairly trivial. Well,
like it's thought provoking. Like, what do you think about? What do you think he's trying to say there? With like it,
I mean, that is the only part of the movie to me that actually kind of has something interesting to say, which is just the way that you treat people. Like, you don't know anything you say. Yes, the ripple effects of it, where like he said this is just kind of some offhand remark, and he was like, what, 16 or 15 or something?
I saw some fucked up shit. Listen, guys, I saw some fucked up shit.
Or he didn't even know. He didn't even know they were. He was just like, I saw these 2 people making out, and he didn't even know who the chick was. She's in her. So he didn't even know that what he was witnessing was incest.
Right.
He just thought, I saw these 2 teenagers making out, and I'm gonna tell my buddy about it. And
my
buddy was
which is a pretty normal reaction for a teenager. Or
like, and then he left to a different school. And Yeah, that is interesting. That part I'd forgotten that small detail of just how like not really
kind of how trivial
he never maliciously meant to hurt this guy.
Well, and this has been thrown around,
the girl, but the guy who is concocting this revenge.
Yeah. This has been thrown around. This quote has been thrown around on the internet for like explaining trauma and stuff. But it's the axe forgets, but the tree remembers. And I think that fits very, very well here. Like it came out of his mouth and he completely forgot about it. It didn't matter to him. But like the people it affected held on to that for literally years or until it killed them.
Yeah. That is when he's listing all the people he could think of that he ever wronged.
Yeah.
It wasn't any of them.
And it just didn't come up at all. Like,
yeah.
I mean, how many people like that in your own life do you think you accidentally said the wrong thing to? And like, you have no idea.
Yeah.
But you can guess that person is like, it's eating at them, forever until someone apologizes or something like that,
Yeah.
So.
All right. Should we cruise through some observations and musings?
Yeah, I don't have any. We've covered everything I was going to cover there. So I think we could just get into tidbits because we're running a little long unless you guys have something.
Yeah, no, my only musing was as seeing this the second time, the twist is so obvious the second time. It's so obvious that even right at the beginning when he meets her in the sushi place, I almost looked over at Nate because I was like, I bet he already figured it out. Like I literally, to me, it was so freaking. And then I'm like, okay, no, he took you a little bit.
Yeah.
But the clues are everywhere.
Well, and it's weird because like I didn't pick up on maybe like those obvious ones, but as soon as they introduced her, I'm like, why? Why are they introducing another female character who's like seemingly unimportant, but then sticks around and becomes important?
Yeah,
it's like, there's something to that, and you gotta like kind of bring yourself out of the movie and go like, why'd they add another one? Because there's only like a couple. So.
And I was also amused with the purple blue dragon. What the hell is that?
It's throwing a wrench. You can't find me. It's a purple one. Like
purple blue dragon makes no sense.
Yeah, he had a purple umbrella, so I don't know.
All right, tidbits. Adam, you got most of these. I have one because I usually just find one when I'm kind of researching box office stuff or something. So go ahead.
So I'll start with like I would say maybe the least interesting one.
Great.
The sister. I mean, the
audience loves that.
I noticed this when I watched it because I've read this. I've read this author, but the sister, when we first meet her back in the day, she's reading Sylvia Plath. And Sylvia Plath is famous for having killed herself.
That is true.
So like, and that's what like that whole flashback scene when that happens.
I thought of that. While we were watching that, Adam, because I remember your strong opinions on Sylvia Plath, and you sort of laughed a little bit.
I did. I was like,
of course, Adam just like can't just leave it alone.
I was like, that one's super obvious. Like, Jesus, guys. Like, so I say that's the least interesting because it's obvious. At least it was at my point. This one is in reference to what we kind of already talked about. The name Dae-soo Oh, which is read in Korean as Oh Dae-soo, is originated from Oedipus. So that's where that sort of comes in.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Then the corridor scene was done in one take.
Yep.
It took 3 days. Which is just bananas. And the only CGI they used was to fix the stab in his back and to fix like 1 or 2 like punches to actually like make sure they hit like a person and not just like swinging at air. That's the only CGI used in that entire scene. But that was all one shot, which I think is wild.
3 days, and it's all so they must just been like, no, that wasn't good enough.
Do it again. We missed. Like
maybe those guys really were that exhausted.
Just like motherfucker. Like one more time.
The poor big guy who has to have a limp for almost the whole fight.
The other one is the prison, the opening scene where he's in prison and like fighting everybody or like being a general piece of shit. That scene, that's all ad-libbed by the main character. That was also the last scene they shot for the movie, which is interesting. And then a lot of the dialogue from the main character in the penthouse scene, specifically like the school song, was ad-libbed as well. So like him like listing people and like some of that stuff is all like just let it fly, and just when he's like crying and weeping and all that stuff is just like let him go, let him act it out and see what happens.
Very interesting. Choi Min-suk is the main actor. He was also in I Saw the Devil, plays a serial killer. I really like that one. But yeah, he just goes for it, man. That opening, he's just throwing a complete temper tantrum. That's funny that's all just ad lib. They're just like, no, just be that guy. Be that guy in the police station.
Tries to piss in a corner, like tries to fight somebody, like. And then the last one I have is they used 4 live octopus for that scene, and he ate 4, and he's a Buddhist, so he prayed after each one.
Can you imagine like successfully completing that scene and having the director say, "Run it again"?
I know.
I'd just quit my job. Like, this isn't worth it.
It's funny because like I feel like that's not as taboo of a thing in Korea as it is here to eat like live animals or live, seafood.
I was thinking that when it happened, I was like, would an American movie made today be able to even do that?
Probably be the American version of that, though.
Backlash,
like a chicken, probably,
or some kind of fish.
Yeah.
Catching
it and beating on go like Lord of the Rings, like catching it and beating the fish on a rock and then just biting it.
Even then, there's something visceral about the octopus fighting back with the tentacles.
Maybe like a snake.
And he passed out, and it's like moving up his nose. I mean, that is so like. Can you imagine like a movie coming out next year where like Timothée Chalamet eats an octopus on screen? Like, I feel like there'd be backlash. People would be like, "That was CGI, right?" And
I wonder if Brolin did it in the Spike Lee remake, which has horrible reviews.
Oh yeah, no one should ever watch that.
I bet he did not.
I'm not subjecting anyone to that.
So yeah, those are the tidbits I had. Nate, what's the one?
I have one, and it's not interesting at all. Except
again, the audience loves those.
Yeah,
from what I hear.
I thought it was hilarious that this somehow made it onto the Wikipedia page for this movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is that the film was watched by over 300,000 television viewers on Channel 4 in the UK in 2011.
What?
Yeah.
We have the data. Put it in.
Weird. Making it the highest viewed foreign movie on a non-BFI channel in 2011 in the UK.
Wow. Okay. So
there's some trivia.
What a movie to catch on TV. First of all, are you fucking kidding me?
And especially in England, like the most squeamish of all societies. I can't believe that.
I'd say we're probably a little bit more squeamish than English people, but
see that
I was
a
bit bothered by this movie.
A bit bothered,
a bit peaky. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
There's tidbits, and Adam, that leads us into the McCabe coat of excellence.
Seen right here. Bam!
Yeah.
In all of its wonderful glory.
Yes. Did anybody in Oldboy earn the McCabe coat? For me, that's an obvious no. Except for possibly the dumpling delivery driver.
Not even the octopus that gave its life to cinema.
See, I
love the dumpling thing. I can go if you're not sure.
Yeah, go for it.
I came really close to just not giving away a coat, but I've said over and over how visually enthralling it was. I went to see it on the big screen for that reason in particular. So I am going to give the McCabe Coat of Excellence to Chung Chung-hoon, who's the cinematographer for Oldboy.
Yeah.
Okay.
No matter what was going on, they filmed it in the most interesting freaking way. A lot of cool stuff with mirrors at the end. A lot of cool stuff with running shots. I was delighted to watch it on a big screen, and that fight sequence, other things. I just, I give it to the cinematographer here.
I am gonna go with Park Chan-wook, the director.
Okay.
For similar reasons, because he's the one who made the decisions to do a lot of that. He's the one who made the decision to adapt this and make it such an interesting, gross, like story that just he felt he needed to tell. Like maybe he wasn't planning on making more than one Vengeance movie, but then he found this and was like, well, let me tell you, that is exactly what I'm looking for. Just something that makes you feel grimy all over and all the way through. Like the picture of this coat, which I'll throw up for another 5 seconds. That's cleaner than anything else in this entire movie. Like everything makes you feel like
and
shit.
That's a dirty movie too.
Yeah, that is a grimy Western, but compared to this, it's positively sterile.
Yeah. So I just think for the decisions that are made, for a lot of the shots that he decided he wanted to set up that way, obviously in tandem with the cinematographer, I think it's all told really, really well. It doesn't mean I necessarily like this movie, but I think it's done expertly. And there's a lot of things I think that are very admirable about it. Again, the story being so gross and so weird is, I think, the thing that turns everybody off to it. But it's a fantastic movie.
All right. Well, that goes to our closing statement then.
Yeah.
Nate, you start off.
Yeah. So I'll just share basically what I wrote on Letterboxd, which is that Oldboy lacks the caution of sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, the catharsis of Lady Vengeance, and really just any of the humanity that make me love so many of Park Chan-wook's other movies. And I don't quite understand why this is kind of viewed as his peak.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because it seems like his other ones, at least that I've seen, are much more delicate and kind of the characters are, better created. It seems like this one just
nuanced too.
The shock just gets it up.
Yeah.
Gets it up there in society's opinion. My closing statement, Oldboy didn't hit quite as well this time, but still put in very well put together. It's been demoted in my rankings from a classic to a shock value guilty pleasure movie going forward. Definitely not for everybody.
Definitely not for everybody.
Yeah. But apparently it's for 300,000 British people.
In 2011. On TV of all things.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I was catching like The Mummy and stuff on TV and like Transformers.
Could you imagine if you were just flipping channels and saw that octopus?
Right?
Right. There's so many scenes from this movie. Like, why is this guy locked in this room? This will be really interesting. And then just finding out it's Oldboy and being like, never mind. Just
like he eats the octopus, he passes out, and then it's like an advertisement for cell phones. And it's just what's going on?
We're lucky it wasn't.
Yeah, where are the commercial breaks in this?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. My closing statement is engrossing, deeply unsettling, and ultimately the grimiest movie I've ever seen. A movie that will stick with me until my final days.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah,
all right.
Stick with you. All right. Well, wonderful. I believe it is my turn to put a wrap on the show.
It is.
Sure.
All right. Well, that's too bad because I am not. Hold on.
I am not prepared.
I did this weird thing where I accidentally I just
so
find it.
I'll chat for a hot second. I think the difference maybe in Nate, how you felt about this movie and for me is I haven't seen the other two Vengeance movies, so I have nothing to compare this to, and I feel like it can't be compared. Because it's so strange.
I knew what this was about, and I was never that interested in it because of that. But then I saw the other two and loved them so much. I thought, like, okay, well, if this is supposed to be better,
that's
then here we go. I was also just excited to see it from like a completist perspective, where like it's a highly regarded movie, and I wanted to see what all the fuss was about,
all the hubbub.
Yeah,
and the theater was full.
It was. People
got up and like left and came back a lot, which was odd.
Yeah, at one point the guy just sat in the empty seat next to me for like 5 minutes and then moved on. I was like, "What's going on here?"
Very strange vibe.
What was also weird is there was clearly a couple on a date, and the guy was dressed like he had like a casual blazer on, and he walked out in the final 5 minutes to like go get water and came back as the credits were rolling. And I was like, "What are you doing?" Like,
I know
you missed like one of the most important parts of the entire movie.
Very poor movie watching.
Choice for the
this fucking guy over here with the blazer on. Like, come on.
Yeah. All right, I've got my quote now.
All right, take it away.
Anyone here with an AB blood type, raise your hand.